Alright, hi. Hey. Hi everybody, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Education Center along with Cascade the Wonder Dog, and down here, I'm not sure you can see, but out of frame on the ground is Sarah the Knot Chihuahua, one of our rescues. I don't think I can grab her. I got her! Yay! This is Sarah, the Knot Chihuahua. She is an addition we rescued. And that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're going to do a vlog. Now, this vlog is extremely disjointed. I started filming it about 10 days ago or so, and I'm going to cut a lot out and piece it together, but there's a lot of things that I'd really like to put in a vlog as opposed to doing a separate video on, because they just aren't that interesting. So, this is what's been going on up to, the last week of September 2019. Now, we're going to start out here in the Chaos Kitchen, because I have out here, not that, I have a test I was doing, which is these plants. Now, I say a test. I've been doing everything, growing them in rock wool and in water since I started the greenhouse. And I've just not been 100% happy with that, although now I am. But at any rate, I decided I'd start some tomatoes and some basil, and I've got an eggplant in here as well as a white bitter gourd. Now, the bitter gourd more than likely will not survive because the weather's getting a little chillier and it's really a tropical plant. But they've gone about as far as they can based on the fertilizer that was in the potting soil, naturally in the potting soil. And these have to grow until they get root bound. Once they get root bound, I can transfer them into the aquaponics. So they're root bound and they need fertilizer. Now, we're not organic here, and I've said that in the past. We can't be organic because we have a bug called the salt cedar beetle. It was a mistake created by Texas, not created, but brought in by Texas A&M University and the our Department of Agriculture, to control the salt cedar trees that are very, very water intensive, that were eating up the water along the Rio Grande and in the tributaries, taking that water away from the desert. So they needed to be eradicated. They brought in the salt cedar beetles. Anyway, the same kind of story as rabbits in Australia, or cane toads in Australia, or love bugs throughout the South. Yeah, they're here, and the only way I can get rid of them is to spray with 7 liquid when they show up. If I don't do it when they show up, they'll eat my trees, and if they eat my trees 2 years in a row, I've lost my trees. So I do have to spray for salt cedar beetles, but I don't spray in the greenhouse, but because of that, we can't be organic. We're all natural. So I could use Miracle-Gro fertilizer, but I don't, because money is always so tight. And I know I always say this, but the thing is, money is tight for you guys too. Perhaps in a different way. Perhaps you've got life debt, or you're living on a fixed income. And a fixed income doesn't necessarily mean Social Security. It also means that your salary is $2,500 a month no matter how many hours you work. Well, you know that's all the money you got coming in, hence fixed income. But I like to save money where I can and utilize what we have around here, which is the whole point of doing what we're doing and putting ourselves out there as a sustainable educational center. So what I've done for fertilizer for these tomatoes is I've taken just a handful of the semi-composted chicken manure that's in what we call our nursery. Now, what's been in the nursery for the last couple of months has been baby ducks, and they put out just as much manure as chickens. So I put it in water, and I'm letting the water hydrate whatever particles are in here, and I'm about to strain it out. So I'm going to strain this out and pour it on those tomatoes. And I thought you might want to watch, but let me strain it first. So here it is strained. This is my, essentially, I guess you'd call it chicken manure tea. Oh, but he's using a measuring cup for the kitchen. Yes, I am. That's part of the ick factor that we have to get rid of here in America. We've got a bad ick factor here, but I'll tell you where the ick factor is the worst is in Japan. And I love the Japanese people, but in terms of ick factor and sterility, man, oh man, this would be thrown out in a Japanese household. And I don't know why. It's glass, it's non-permeable. I've got the chicken manure in it. We're going to wash it in the hot water and soap. Why would you throw it out? Why would you throw it out? Oh, because I know that stuff is in there. Well, yeah, it's not going to hurt you. It's washed out and cleaned. Anyway, that's part of the ick factor that we have to overcome. So all I do is just pour, just pour some in each cell, and I can be sloppy because that tray underneath is just picking the water up as the plants need it. But I want to be sure that the tomatoes get the bulk of this. I'm going to put a little in that bitter gourd, and then definitely in my purple eggplants here, and then just the rest, which is going to be kind of the slurry, goes in the basils. Now I'm going to put some more water in there too. But anyway, that's a nice natural fertilizer. You do have to be careful. Chicken manure is hot. That's why we made a tea out of it instead of just adding the chicken manure. It'll work fine, and we'll see in a few days how these are. We have to get them root bound so I can put them in the aquaponics. All right, since we're in the chaos kitchen, I might as well go to the next up, which is our electric system. That is the thing that I worked on yesterday and got so exhausted. Yesterday was Tuesday. Tuesday night we do the live stream. And I worked on this and got so exhausted I couldn't do the live stream. So that's the reason it got canceled, those of you that do watch it. But here's the issue. And I've often referred to this place as a mature off-grid facility. And what that means is we've been living here with everything set up now for 9 years. 9 years of wear and tear on the electric system, the rainwater collection, not that there is any, but 9 years of it being in existence. And these batteries here are 8 years old. Now they should last a lifetime, but 2 of them were dropped. This one and the one where my foot is now, or where the one used to be rather, where my foot is. They were dropped on delivery. Long story, but we got an insurance settlement and kept the batteries because they worked for a while, but slowly some of the plates in the one where my foot is gave up. This one's perfectly all right, but this one here, the plates maybe got knocked a little bit and they touched, or whatever. We don't know what happened, but anyway, some of it went bad. And this battery back here was the original battery that we bought, and it just died, and I really can't tell you why it died, but my suspicion is this, that by having 4 forklift batteries here, that we never got the 4 batteries to fully charge. Once they ran down on a cloudy day, we never got them fully recharged, and that's really hard on a battery. If you've got a half a charge, then it goes down to a quarter charge or a 16th of a charge, and you bring it up only to a half. That's hard. And this battery failed, so I couldn't move it. They're 1,600 pounds. So I just disconnected the whole battery and was running off of these 2. Well, I said this was the original battery with one of the original 2. This is the other of the original 2. This one simply, again, the same problem perhaps, but I didn't realize it, and Debbie and I were having an awful time at night. We were having to get up at 3 in the morning and start the DC generator because we had no power left. Well, it was because 2 of the cells, and I was wrong. If one of you people is someone that commented on the original when I was talking about our battery system, telling me these were 2-volt batteries, and I kept insisting they're 1 volt, they're 1 volt. No, I was wrong. You guys were right. They're 2-volt batteries. Absolutely, you guys were correct. But 2-volt cells, rather, in there. So there's 12 2-volt cells. So we have 2 setups here, 2 systems that are a 12-volt battery here and a 12-volt battery here that are wired in parallel. The same thing here. Well, this battery, all it was weak, and it was tired, and it didn't have any charge in it, wasn't getting any charge because 2 of these cells were dead. So 2 of these cells were dead, and let's see, I never did look to see. I'm going to look right now. 1 in each of the 12-volt setups. So each one of these 2 was a 10-volt battery. So all I had was a 10-volt battery. So whatever 12-volt power went in here, just like a chain is only strongest at its weakest link, your battery is only as good as its weakest cell. I have 2 dead cells, so I'm running on a 10-volt battery. It kept knocking this down to 10 volt, and therein lied the problem. So what I came out to do yesterday was bypass. What I was going to do was just kill one section of this battery and one section of this battery to make 1 good battery, 1.5 good batteries. That's what I was going to do. But over here on the dead one, I checked using the hydrometer, and I had after this thing had been unhooked for almost 4 months, I had lots of voltage in 2 cells over here. 2 dead cells there, lots of voltage in these cells after about 3.5 months. So what I did was tapped into them. You can see this wire here, this wire here. I tapped into these 2 cells, bypassed the dead cells, so now I have, with the help of these 2 cells, I have a 12-volt battery here, and I have a 12-volt battery here. Now that's important because I'm going to tell you about something we're changing now around here. So I have a 12-volt battery between these 2, and this one is charging up. And right now at 10:30 in the morning, we're showing fully charged on the system, which is 12.7. Now I realize that's the float; it has to work its way on down. But we're showing 12.7, and we hadn't been showing 12.7 until after, oh gosh, until after 1 in the afternoon before. So we know these are working. I've checked everything with the hydrometer. It's working great. But that was a lot of work, just a lot of aggravation and a lot of work. Now, what I wanted to discuss further was I keep saying, don't ever go to 12 volts, 24, 36. Jump right to 48, jump right to 48, jump right to 48. And I still believe that. But that being said, we're going to stay with a 12-volt system here. The reason we're going to stay with a 12-volt system is I am building and designing a gravity battery. The gravity battery is, I can get 48-volt alternators, but I'm going to run it, I believe right now, on 12-volt alternators and just keep the 12-volt system. I might change my mind on that, but it just, a 48-volt alternator is in the neighborhood of $300 to $400. A 48-volt alternator is in the neighborhood of $300 to $400. A 12-volt alternator, boom car alternators with a built-in voltage regulator, I can buy all day long for $110. And the system's been okay at 12 volts. So I'm going to keep it at 12 volts because the gravity battery is going to be 12 volts. Because of what I just said. But let me show you what I'm going to do with it, and I'll just go get, I'll stay in front of this. As I get closer on the gravity battery, I'll actually do a video or a series of videos describing gravity batteries because I really want to promote gravity batteries to people. But this is a dead alternator. It was one that was on our DC generator. The bearings are fine. The alternator, the wiring is bad. Well, the bearings are fine. Bearings are fine, so that means if I were able to reuse this, I wouldn't have to buy bearings. So what I'm doing now is working with the guy I buy my pulleys from to see if we can put a double V-belt pulley on this. And we're going to do, instead of a gear reduction, we're going to do a gear increase so that when the first one of these alternators makes one complete revolution here, the final one down the row will put out 3,000 RPMs. 3,000 RPMs is just about perfect to run an alternator for a 12-volt alternator. We'll get into that at a later date, but I did want to mention that's why I'm going to stop talking about 48 volts now, unless I come up with really cheap, low-dollar alternators, because at 3,000 RPMs, these alternators should only last me 6 or 8 months. I get about 1.5 years out of them now on the DC generator, but I won't be starting the DC generator as much now that the system is repaired. I did the same thing out in the greenhouse, and I'm going to show you that, and then we'll get into the rest of what I've already filmed on the vlog, which, as I said, is going to be really choppy because I filmed it a long time ago. So let's go out to the greenhouse and look at the battery out there. All right, this here is a completely separate array, solar array or electrical system that was supposed to run the greenhouse. And I built it, I did start it out to be permanent, and then I've thrown some temporary panels in here. I had the 3 panels that I put out here thinking that would be enough. Well, then I'm looking around, I had 2 that were badly damaged. I mean, they were, well, one of them, I think somebody other than me that was driving a piece of equipment backed into this and shattered one of the panels. Another panel I dropped on a rock and shattered it. Now I don't know if you can see it from there, and I'm not going to do a close-up, but this is the one I shattered. This is the one that got backed into, and it got backed into, I mean, that's a hell of a job there. It really destroyed well, what I paid back 9 years ago, I paid $180 for this panel, so it did a good job on that panel. But I tested them. Remember, the mantras here, the 3 R's. Reuse, repurpose, recycle. So can we reuse it? I actually checked them, and that thing's putting out 19 volts. It only puts out like 20 when it's brand new, and it's not, this one's 10 years old. The 2 shattered ones are 10 years old, putting out 19 volts still. So I hooked them up. I hooked this one up and this one up to catch the morning sun, and the rest of these are facing exactly 200 degrees from due north. That gets the optimum in a stationary system. That's the optimum direction to face it. 3 of them are at 31.5 degrees. This one here, I just haven't mounted it at 31.5 yet. 31.5 for where we are at our latitude is ideal because we're 31.5 latitude. So this is the system, and it combined, it puts out 720 watts. So I've got 720 watts possible here. Let's look at the front end of it, the whole electric system that I set up. Supposed to power the greenhouse, the 12-volt pumps on the greenhouse, and the AC pump with an inverter, and the night security lights. That's what it was supposed to power. However, when Debbie and I moved the battery, the forklift battery, in that one move we did, we moved that forklift battery, we jarred something, and guess what? We messed up a cell. So I had to be out here working. Let me show you what I did. Now, like that other battery, this one is still charging, and it's at 1191, so it's under 12 volts. Most people would say that's a dead battery, but remember, these are forklift batteries, and they're designed to go down and then be fully charged. So we're at 1191. We have a 2,000 watt power inverter. It's upside down, but we have a 2,000 watt power inverter, and that would be enough to power the whole greenhouse. But let me show you the battery. So this battery was one of the 2 that were dropped, and I got the insurance settlement on. This was the first one to go bad, and what I did was I cobbled it together. I threw out a couple of the cells that I knew were bad, which were 3 bad ones. I threw them out and cobbled together one 12-volt battery that put out half of the power, or roughly 1,500 amp hours, the way that most people, when you're buying solar-powered batteries, the way that they rate them, not the way that these people rate them. So about 1,500 amp hours is what I would have had, what I had here, and it was working fine until Debbie and I moved it. Then something went bad. Well, these, I had three cells that I had disconnected that might have been good, but I can't add 3 cells to a 12-volt battery because then I would have an 18-volt battery, and that's too much for the inverter. So I just left those cells. So I came back here when that one cell died and said, well, let's try this. So I wired the 3 cells together separately, hooked them up to a solar panel. Now what would have happened is the solar panel at 12 volts would have cooked those 3 at 6 volts and brought them back to life, which it was cooking, and it cooked for 2 days. When I tested them with the hydrometer, I still had 2 dead ones, but I had 1 live one. So I was able to take the 1 live one, and I can't remember which one it is. It seems to me it was this one. But I took the 1 live one and put it with the others to give me 12 volts. And I do indeed have 12 volts, but the pump runs the battery down overnight. And this battery was starting really, I mean, it was starting at 10 volts was all it had anyway when I hooked this up last night. So we'll see at the end of the day. So that was what I did. That is some of the stuff. And if a lot of what I just said went over your head, if it was just all mumbo-jumbo, my friend, you are not alone. It's mumbo-jumbo to almost everybody, but this is one of the things you have to understand and understand deeply if you're going to try to live as a new homesteader. In other words, if you have money and means, you can build a normal house and then build an electric system separate. You still have to understand the electric system, but if you have means, if you have money coming in, I hate to say credit, don't ever use credit, but if you have money coming in, money available to you, you can avoid having to do things like this. But remember, I might have had access to money to replace these batteries. But 3 R's: reuse, repurpose, recycle. We reused and repurposed this battery, and it's working fine. We reused and repurposed the shattered solar panels. Do they look like hell? Yeah, they look like hell. Does anyone out here care? Not really. So this is the stuff you have to learn if you're going to get into this type of living. Either that, or you're going to have to spend a lot of money hiring it out to somebody, or doing quid pro quo exchange, bartering with other people. But at least I showed you. Now let's move on to the rest of the stuff that I shot earlier. Greenhouse is coming along, which I'll walk you through that, I hope, in this vlog. Sometimes I say things in the beginning here that don't happen because I'm working without a script and I forget. But what I'm working on right here is a, well, I call it a colonial primitive cannonball bed. Now I'll show you the bed, the head and footboards in a bit. What I'm doing here is just simply taking some of the wood that I'm going to use on it, measuring it to cut. I'm not the world's best carpenter, so we're not going to do a separate video about this as a how-to, because what I'm doing is showing you how to be mediocre, and I don't want to do that. Finished carpentry is not my thing. It's probably not your thing either. The majority of the people that tune in to watch my videos, or that are looking to change their lifestyle to get away from that slave cycle of debt and overconsumption, you're not that good at this kind of thing either. I mean, some of us, myself included, have trouble pounding a nail straight. But I can do a good enough job with the skill level I have that I'm proud to look at it and say, hey, I did that. Yeah, there's flaws, but I did that. And that's what I want to do. That's probably the biggest thing Debbie and I are going to teach here at this place once we get it to be an educational center, is it doesn't matter your skill level. Give it your very, very best shot. Do the very best you can possibly do on everything you start to do. And you can hold your head up, even if it looks like crap. You hold your head up and you know that's the very best you could do. I don't give a rat's ass if somebody else can do it better. It's the best you can do. And if you do the best you can do, you have there's no reason for you to ever be ashamed. So, I'm going to work on this bed. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going to be cutting the lengthwise side rails. The bed is, it's a queen size bed, so it's 60 inches wide by 80 inches long. I'm going to be cutting the 80-inch length down here, and I'm going to be attaching 2x4s just as you see here. So we'd have like an L shape, a 2x6 upright and a 2x4. Sorry, I had to look at it. No, the 2x4 attaches right down here. So you have the 2x6 and the 2x4 right here. So you have 3.5, 4.5, 5 here. You have 2 extra inches up here. That's the 2 inches the bed will fall into. And then I've got my slats to come across. Now the thing we're doing with the slats and with every joint in the bed is, I'm not that good, but I am good enough that I can do I can do the joinery without nails or screws. So we're going to peg everything, and I'll show you how I'm going to peg it as I go along. But I'm going to get cutting right here and move on to the next step. I should finish this bed in this video, but we'll see. And I've got a couple other things to show you. I'm really excited about the greenhouse, and I've got a mundane job to do, and that's put up the guttering. But if I had that guttering up when we had that last rain, I would have been able to capture an extra 1,000 gallons of water. The only problem was the tanks are full, so it would have gone on the ground anyway. Hey, I'll be right back. Hey, so my first cut, I ran into an issue that I wanted to share with you guys. You know, when I started building things, I bought my first house. I was 21 years old when I bought my first house. That would have been 1974. There were no big box stores, no Home Depot or Lowe's. You went to the hardware store if you were lucky, and we were lucky. There was a lumber yard nearby. Moved to Houston, and the first big box lumber store that I saw was a place called Handy Dan's. My nephew Paul used to call it Handy Herschel's. But anyway, Handy Dan. And Handy Dan went broke, and then there was Lowe's and Home Depot, and that's probably part of the reason. Anyway, bought all my stuff for years and years in Florida, and even here in Houston, from Lowe's, Home Depot, and Handy Herschel. I've only got McCoy's here, and I'm going to send a link to this video to McCoy's, because I can go to Home Depot and Lowe's all day long and I get straight lumber that when I get it home it stays straight, it doesn't twist, it doesn't warp. I bought this lumber here not a week ago. Got it home, it was perfect. I mean, I looked at 20 or 30 boards to pick these two that were perfectly straight. Now you can see right here, you can see I've got a warp going out, and one of them, I believe it's this one here, bowed. It actually bowed up like that. There's no excuse for that. It's all, yeah, it's number 2 lumber. And it's something called Hampton Plus. So if you have a choice, stay away from anything that says Hampton Plus. And if you have a choice between McCoy's or Home Depot or Lowe's, I recommend you stay away from McCoy's, because somehow along the line, McCoy's lumber buyer got himself some free tickets to the Dallas Cowboys or the Texans or a trip to the Bahamas to deal with this Hampton Plus and buy their inferior grade 2 lumber. I looked it up, and grade 2 lumber has got like 10 grades in it. You've got one that's really nice, almost a number 1, and you've got one that's grade 2, but it's, if there was a number 4, it'd be number 4. I got number 3 and 3/8, I think, here. Stay away from McCoy's lumber. McCoy's tries well. The employees in the stores are wonderful. It's that doggone buyer that's buying this junk and sending it to the stores. Now, I have had nightmares from McCoy's to the point where I've actually driven the 420 mile round trip to Odessa to get lumber, and I'm about to start it again because I'm disappointed. It's going to affect my final bed, but I have to use it because we're here right now. So let's get going. Well, it's a new day, as you can probably tell, because I've changed my shirt out of the pink shirt. Still trying to wear out these ones that aren't pink. But you'll notice the bed's gone. I put it together, and I put it in the bedroom, and therein lies a problem. You know, I'm one that always likes to tell you folks when I made a mistake. I don't just show you the finished product after 13 edits and recuts and reshots. I'll show you if I've made a mistake. And I made a mistake. Let me show you from behind the camera. Well, I assembled the bed over here in this area just because it was here. And I had some things in the bedroom on the concrete slab where the bed was going that needed to be moved, and I had a moment of laziness, and boy, that I paid for that. I should have moved it in the bedroom and assembled it there, because my door, plenty tall enough, plenty wide enough at 36 inches, but here's the problem we ran into. You can already see it, that little half wall there. Now behind that wall is supposed to be the closet when I finish construction, so that's why that half wall is there. But notice, not a lot of room between the half wall and here. Well, we figured we would just twist it in like I'm sure you guys have all tried to do in the past, but the problem is the bed is way tall. It's about 6 feet tall, and no matter what we did, it wasn't coming in this bedroom. It just wasn't. There was no way, short of disassembling it. Now, I can't get back far enough to show you the whole bed, but short of disassembling it, there wasn't anything I could do to get it in here. Well, I didn't want to disassemble it because it was already pegged and glued, and I would have had to drill out the pegs and then go to a bigger dowel rod, which, as it turns out, I'm 1 dowel rod short, so I probably could have done that. I'm 1 dowel rod short because I don't have enough dowel rods to put my slats across here. So what we ended up doing, which I hate to do as hard as I worked on this bed, I did it with a draw knife, not on a lathe or anything. I did these all with a draw knife, and so it was a lot of work. What I ended up doing was cutting off the headboard right here. You can see that line, and there's a line like it on the other side. Now I've got to patch that line up with some wood putty. Luckily, it won't show above the mattress. It just doesn't show. That's why I cut the headboard and not the footboard. The footboard would have shown more. But I cut it, drilled it, put a piece of, used Gorilla Glue, put a piece of rebar in the one hole and then shot, Gorilla Glue up the hole here, down on top of it so that the rebar and the Gorilla Glue were fully coated and it got in the hole, and it's as solid as can be. But guys, if you're going to do something like this and build a beautiful piece of furniture, well, or as beautiful as you can possibly do, which is what this is, make sure you measure where you're going to put it to be sure it can get in there, because I'm laughing at it now, and Debbie and I were laughing at it yesterday, but this bed weighs over 100 pounds, and we tried 3 different ways before we gave up and cut it. So anyway, the bed... Okay, here's my fish. Well, folks, the greenhouse is wonderful. You see a picture of it, you see all the greenery, this riot of growth out in the middle of the desert. It's really wonderful. But it's an aquaponics greenhouse, and you can't have aquaponics without fish. How am I going to get fish when I'm in literally the most remote place in the lower 48? I don't get overnight delivery of anything here. Second day is about the best I can do. So I ordered my 50 fish when I first set this up. They arrived, all 50 of them were alive. I put them in the middle tank. This was the first pond, rather. The first pond that I built. And this is our water vegetable pond, and at the moment, you can see it's completely overgrown. We're about to harvest the Kang Kong out of it, and then it'll be open again. But I put them in there. Something like 40 of them survived, so that wasn't too bad. I don't know if they're having babies or whether some mosquito fish that a well-meaning person dumped in there, but probably shouldn't have. I don't know if it's the mosquito fish that have been giving me a million fry, or whether I actually have 40 tilapia that have paired up and are giving me fry. But I have a lot of fry in here. But I have nothing in the 900-gallon tank that we put here strictly for the aquaponics. And I also have a lot of algae in the upper pond because it doesn't have any fish in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of the fish in the upper pond, 20 of them or so, and the rest of them in the 900-gallon tank. But I ordered the fish. I was all excited. I had 100 fish coming. They arrived. I could smell it when I picked up the box. Somehow they had gotten incredibly hot and gotten cooked. Well, I called the people I ordered the fish from. Said, well, it happens once in a blue moon, is what he said, and then you got the blue moon, I guess. So he sent me a replacement order of fish. But we were so disappointed, and plus, it's 100 dead fish. So we were really disappointed because the first batch had gotten here with no issues at all, and now I have, a bunch of dead ones. So he re-shipped them for me, and we were all, I called the driver from UPS and let him know the fish were coming. Said, I'm going to meet you out on the highway. We'll do a handoff on the fish. I'll haul myself back here. Hopefully everything's all right. Well, I'm going to show you Debbie and I opening the fish right now, and then I'll come back here. But here's Debbie and I opening the box. Arrived at 10:19 a.m. in Alpine. It's now about 12:55. It's still sealed. I'm going to give the camera to Debbie to keep the camera on me while I cut open the box, and hopefully we've got live fish. The first shipment arrived completely dead and cooked from the heat. We'll see what happens here. There's my cuts. Open, 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 and live fish, and they're smaller. He sent big ones the first time. Every single fish is alive in this batch. That's fantastic. So I even have time to acclimate them the way he suggested that we acclimate them, which I will do right. Okay, so we got 100 live fish. Now I had to acclimate them to both the water, the pH in the water, or whatever is in our water, and the temperature. They've been acclimated now. I'm going to get my net, and I'm going to net out about 20 of them. Try to show you guys that, and then we'll put the 20 in the upper tank and the rest of them in here. And as I'm sitting here, I'm looking at about 12 little fish about that big. Again, I don't know if they're mosquito fish that wash down from one to the other to the lower area, or whether they're tilapia. We just won't know until we actually get them big enough to identify. Let's get the net. I'm leaving you back there because I don't have 16 hands, and Debbie doesn't want to be a camera person, so I'll leave you back there. I'm first going to get water, and that's a chore in here. There's so many fry, it's difficult to get water without getting fry. Alright, so I have some water. Now let me see if I can I want to get about 20 of the fish in here. That's about enough. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20. It doesn't matter if I have a few extras because they're all going to do their job. And of course, as you know, their job is to grow. There's to eat food, crap, and the chemicals and the crap that they put in all becomes the food for the whole aquaponics system. We'll do a little tour of it too. But let me take you down, and I want to show you the fish. So there you're looking straight down on the 20 or so I'm going to put in the upper tank. So let's go do that. That noise in the background is the air pump. I can't tell until I edit this, but I hope the sound is okay. So this has got a challenge to it. That's why I'm only putting about 20 fish in here. Challenge number one is this is the return, the water return from all of the float beds. So the water is always going to be pouring in here like this. Now also over here, you can just see that sheet of water flowing down into the lower pond. So what I'm going to do right here, there is no real good way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and just take these guys, try to hold you and not drop you. I'm just going to go ahead and take them and just put them in here like this. That's all of them, and they're gone. Now, we won't know what's going on with them until later, but they should clean up some of this algae. They should pair up in here and give me more tilapia. The idea is, as much as I like the people I bought the tilapia from, the idea is not to buy any more. Now, before I put the rest of them down here, and I'll reset you so you can watch, I do want to say, I mentioned that, I got now 3 shipments of fish, the one that arrived dead, of course, and then the first one that every single fish was alive, and this one where every single fish was alive. Anyone interested in aquaponics, you always want to know recommendations from someone, and I can highly recommend these people that I bought from. Very good communication. They are busy, but so they don't have time to answer every little tiny question you have. But they answer the important ones, and we're extremely helpful here with these fish, and I'm very pleased with them. And they are called Tilapia Depot out of St. Augustine, Florida. Their website is Tilapia Depot, one word, tilapiadepot.com. Matt Roy is the owner, and he's the guy who took care of me. He reminded me, even though I knew that in the state of Texas we could only have one type of tilapia, and that's a Mozambique. That's what I have here. I highly recommend them to those of you that may want to get into it, and most people that have come by here are just looking, just to watch and get an idea, and maybe we're entertainment. Let me point you down here, and I'll release the other fish. I manage this without stepping on this vine. This vine, by the way, is a Zuniga di Napoli squash. It's a gorgeous squash. I'll show you a little bit about it in a moment. Down here, this is actually a raft of snails. Now, where the snails came from, who knows? But they are doing an excellent job, and they don't bother me a bit. So I got the fish are all acclimated, and all I'm going to do is just slowly turn this upside down. And I'm assuming they went right straight to the bottom because I don't see any. Let's make sure nobody's left in here. Hello? 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 Anyone there? No. Okay. Hello. I'm a cool gadget. I pollinate tomatoes. Would you like to see me pollinate a tomato? Just watch. Now I know you think that's Batman, but I got to do this one. When you take Batman's head off, you're left with an electric toothbrush. Ah! You turn the electric toothbrush on. Now I'll tell you, I've already hand pollinated these, so they're either going to do their thing. But you just put it right there. You'll notice that some of the tines on the bristles on the toothbrush are already yellow from this. You just let it vibrate on your flowers, and the vibration, I'm told, is enough to spread that pollen and get that pollinated. Now I did it about 4 or 5, I guess I did it about 5 days ago for the first time on these purple Cherokees, and I have not seen a tomato come from what I did, but we'll see what happens later. Well, back in the greenhouse to finish this up, but first of all, that humming you hear very loud in the background, that's my air pump that's putting the air into this giant float bed, the smaller float bed, and all the aquaponics, all the ponds, in other words, the water catchments, which the fish are doing wonderful right now. I still can't tell whether I've got mosquito fish that should never have been put in here, or tilapia babies, but whatever they are, I got a lot of them, and the nutrition that they're putting in here is really making a difference. And also, a couple, 4 days ago, I think I did the video on the lights, where I was building a grow light for no money at all. The plants, apparently the height's right. The plants have responded to the grow lights, and where they were leaning towards the morning sun, now they're coming straight up. So they're growing towards this light that's on them 12 hours a night. Fantastic. I want to leave the lights on 24 hours, but I want to get both battery systems up and fully charged first. Back over here is something I wanted to show you guys. I've got a giant moth I just noticed. Look at this moth. I don't think he'll fly away. No, he's not going to fly away, but he's on my yard-long beans, and this is what I wanted to show you. I've had yard-long beans, and I've done videos that show people the yard-long beans before, but these yard-long beans here are about 2 days away from harvest. These are the very first yard-long beans that we've grown aquaponically. They're in a very small, I think it's a 4-inch net pot down here. They've grown up, they're spreading out, and I've got, I think, like 8 beans. Now, 8 beans on yard-long beans is enough for a nice side dish for Debbie and I. I'm very excited. Remember, this is my first adventure into aquaponics, so I'm not going to present myself as an aquaponics expert, but I'm very, very excited on the fact that I've got the yard-long beans there. I've got the tomatoes here that I grew from suckers. They're doing fantastic. I've got a whole bunch of other tomatoes. The winter is going to be all about tomatoes for Debbie and I, and I'm going to start, as soon as I get my Social Security check this month, we're going to start planting our potatoes. I'm going to get some different varieties of potatoes from Central America, and I'm going to plant them in these great big tomato pots I have. So we're really excited. You can see, well, maybe you can't, but you can see my basils are coming up. I'll have my first basils ready to sell to my clients, finally. Clients, I can say that word, in the ghost town that are waiting on basil. And once I start, it'll be every week. I'm going to have 30 plants for them every week, and that should be all they need. Everything's rolling good. One final thought, and this was something I did want to tell you. You know, there are things in life that come along and depress you. The death of a family member, a divorce, repossession. You figure what it is. You get depressed and you retreat into a corner. Or, in one of the old trite sayings, you know, when you hit rock bottom, you're at least on solid ground and there's nowhere to go but up. When you get depressed like that, which is where I was, imagine how I felt. I've got $25,000 tied up in this electric system, and it wasn't working. I've got to run the DC generator every night. I was really depressed by that. Again, the problems with my legs, they're never going to go away, but that and that and that depressed the hell out of me. Well, my way, and the way I want to teach, and the way I want to tell everybody that watches these videos, my way when I get down like that is to not just keep retreating, because eventually you do hit rock bottom. My way is to say, before I hit rock bottom, enough is enough, and I'm going to come out and hit it head on as hard as I can. That's what I did yesterday with the electric. I repaired the electric, I fixed some other things. I can't do anything about my legs except not put so much strain on them, which is a little hard because if I've got daylight I want to work. But I came out swinging on the water system, the gutters, and the electric, and I fixed the problem. And you can always fix a problem. As long as you're alive, as long as you're drawing breath, you can fix whatever is bugging you. And that's the message I want to put out to people, because once you get mad enough, or you've had enough of things not going your way, if you can get out, if you can just hit it head on, fix the problems, it lifts you up and makes you a better person. And that's the way we have to do, whether it's in our individual life, whether it's in the politics of the nation, or whether it's in what is going to depress the hell out of all of us, the effects of man-made climate disruption, which we're talking about a lot this week because of the climate summit. Remember, don't wait till you hit rock bottom. Turn around like a cougar does and come out swinging. You might go down, but the bullet will be in your chest, not in your back. Remember that. And until next time, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center in Far West Texas. Saying see you later.